When we think about medicine, we tend to trust the big stuff, right? Huge studies, massive amounts of data, these giant clinical trials. But what happens when the trail goes cold? When a disease is so rare or a side effect is so new that all you have is a single clue? Well, that's when medicine has to put on its detective hat.
I mean, really think about that for a second. How do you find an answer when you literally can't gather thousands of patients for a big study? When a brand new pandemic pops up or some one in a million side effect happens? Where do you even begin to look for answers? It turns out the investigation starts with something way smaller and a lot more personal. It all starts with something called a case report. Now, this is basically a doctor acting like a key witness. They're meticulously writing down the story of one single patient, their symptoms, what treatments were tried, the final outcome. It's not some grand experiment. It's a single, vital piece of evidence, kind of like the lone footprint at a crime scene. So yeah, these individual reports are the first clues. They're often the very first alert, the first whisper that something new and really important is happening in the world of medicine. And this is the thing you've got to get. When we're out on the frontiers of medicine, dealing with rare infections or unexpected problems after a surgery or a totally new virus like COVID-19, these individual stories aren't just one type of evidence. A lot of the time, they are the only evidence we have. They're the first reports coming back from the front lines. But, and this is a huge but, this creates a massive problem. Because as invaluable as these clues are, they kind of clash with the highest standards of medical research. See, at their core, they're anecdotes. And science, for very good reasons, is super skeptical of anecdotes. On this slide just lays out the whole conflict perfectly. In one corner, you have the heavyweight champion of medical evidence, the systematic review. It pulls together data from huge controlled studies, and its whole job is to eliminate bias. Then in the other corner, you have our lone clue, the case report. It's just the story of one person, there's no control group, and it's seen as one of the lowest, most bias-prone levels of evidence out there. So why do they get such a bad rap? Well, for starters, there's a huge risk of what's called selection bias. Doctors might only write about their most amazing successes or their absolute weirdest cases. Plus, with no control group, we have no idea if the patient would have gotten better anyway. And then you've got the patient's own unique history, which throws in countless other factors that could be confusing the picture. So for all these reasons, they've traditionally just been left out of the big, important evidence reviews. But what if you could flip that on its head? What if you could treat a collection of these individual clues not as a weakness, but as a data set? What if there was a way to connect the dots between all of these lone witnesses? And this is where the breakthrough happens. Researchers came up with a method designed specifically for this problem, the systematic review of case reports. It's a tool that's built to carefully gather up all these scattered clues from all over the world and then analyze them together with real scientific rigor. So what can this new kind of investigation actually find? Well, for one, it can build this rich, detailed picture of a rare disease that no single doctor could ever see on their own. Two, it can spark new hypotheses by spotting patterns that tell the bigger, more expensive studies where to look. Three, it acts like an early warning system, catching rare side effects from new drugs. And finally, it lets doctors systematically share life-saving insights with each other. And I want to be really clear here. This is not just about randomly collecting a bunch of stories. It follows a super strict, repeatable scientific blueprint to make sure the whole process is as rigorous as it can possibly be. The process is, it's intense. Researchers start with a very specific question. Then they systematically search up to 6 major scientific databases, not just one or two. They sift through maybe thousands of articles, pull out the key data points from every case they select, check the quality of each report, and then finally, they pool all that data together for a real statistical analysis. This is how you turn scattered anecdotes into structured evidence. All right, so that's the theory. But does this actually work in the real world? Oh, yeah. Let's look at a real-world case where this exact method played a huge role in solving a modern medical mystery. This story is just a brilliant illustration of this method's power. So back in 2016, a team published a systematic review of case reports. It suggested a link between different infections and a rare clotting disorder called antiphospholipid syndrome, or APS. Fast forward 4 years, COVID-19 hits the world, and doctors are totally stumped by these strange and dangerous blood clots in their patients. And guess what? That 2016 review, built from old individual clues, suddenly became a vital roadmap. It gave researchers a foundation to rapidly figure out what was happening. So, just how important was that one paper? Get this. 513. That's how many times other scientific papers cited that 2016 review. It wasn't just some interesting finding. It became a cornerstone for research into a life-threatening part of a new global pandemic. And it was all thanks to connecting the dots between individual patient stories. So where does this all lead? What's next? Well, the method isn't perfect, of course, but the scientific community is actively working on making these individual clues stronger and more reliable than ever before. You see, a huge challenge has always been that the quality of case reports can be all over the place. But now, new tools are being developed to fix exactly that problem. For example, the CARE checklist gives authors a 13-point guide on how to write a more complete and useful report. And other tools from places like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and the Joanna Briggs Institute, the JBI, give reviewers a standard way to score the quality of the clues they find. It's all about making the evidence better right from the source. And I love this quote because it just nails the whole point. A review of these cases isn't supposed to be the final answer. Its job is to pave the way. It's supposed to light the path by taking all this scattered information and building a foundation that's strong enough to guide the bigger, more definitive studies. And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. For all the biggest mysteries in medicine, the rare diseases, the surprising side effects, the brand new threats, these systematic reviews of case reports are an absolutely essential tool. They don't just solve the mysteries, they give science the foundational clues it needs to start asking the right questions in the first place. And that leaves us with one final thought. In our world, which is so focused on big data, this whole method is a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest discoveries start with the smallest, most human data point of all, a single patient story. The real challenge is just making sure we're always listening.